Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paschati Dasatani. We are continuing reading from Prabhupada's words about leaving our body. And we all have to leave our body, obviously. And Krishna consciousness, one aspect of Krishna consciousness, is meant to prepare us for this moment. And the last few days we had discussed how much should a devotee want to go back to Godhead, and how much should he just be at Krishna's will for whatever Krishna wants. And one of the things I forgot to mention was that one of the reasons the pure devotee is not concerned about if he's going back to Godhead or not is because he's already with Krishna. So why would he desire to be with Krishna if he already is? So it's not really a consideration. And the other thing that Prabhupada said is that a devotee considers that desire to go back to Krishna as a form of, in a sense, a form of personal gratification. So he always wants to do what Krishna wants. And so that's for the pure devotee. And then we had discussed that until one is on that platform, it's necessary, or it's good, or it's an impetus to have that feeling and that knowledge that the world is suffering and I would like to get out of here. And it points to the point that our realization should correspond to our level of Krishna consciousness. So if I have, quote unquote, a realization that's far beyond my realization, then it's artificial and it doesn't work. And as sometimes we say, well, devotee says, Krishna, I just want to come back. Janmani, Ishwari Bhavatad Bhakti. Yeah, but then you come back and then you forget Krishna. And one time, Prabhupada said, even you come back, born in the aristocratic family, there's not 100% guarantee that you would continue your bhakti. And we've seen that because many people were born in the family of devotees, and many people are still being born in the family of devotees, which is an amazing opportunity, but it's not a guarantee. It's a fantastic opportunity, but not a guarantee. Prabhupada was saying, if you're not complete in your bhakti, sometimes you won't even be born as in a devotee family, but you'll be born in the family of aristocratic, highly placed people. And Prabhupada said that way you're well taken care of so that you can focus on your spiritual life. But obviously aristocratic people, wealthy people don't all take the spiritual life. So therefore, considering that, Prabhupada said, yeah, it's good that we would desire to go back to Godhead, because if we're not yet pure, it would be perhaps dangerous to take birth again, and perhaps dangerous not to want to go back to Godhead and artificially say, Krishna, whatever you want, I just want to do it birth after birth, which is ultimately the stage we want to come to, but it has to be something organic and natural. And what is good on one level of bhakti may not be good on another level of bhakti. So that was just the point I wanted to make a little clear about, because sometimes we might see that we have a desire. And it's true we have this desire, I want to be pure in Krishna, I just want to do what you want. But that may not be where I'm at. So that is a desire which I'm aspiring for, but in reality, that's not what I'm experiencing now. And then I have to act, no matter how I desire, I have to act according to my level, my realization. So I desire one thing, but while I'm desiring that, something very high, I have to recognize my position and act accordingly. Otherwise, everything can get messed up, and it can, in some cases, evolve to some kind of sahaja practice where one thinks they're transcendental when they're not, or more transcendental than they are, and engage in activities which are not required, not activities which are not recommended. And there's a devotee, I won't mention his name, and I see him sometimes on the internet, and I saw a godbrother who was in a picture with him, having lunch with him, and I said, this devotee that I see on the internet, he doesn't seem to be so orthodox in how he approaches Krishna consciousness. I find it strange. And you were taking lunch with him. Can you tell me something? I just don't know. I don't want to make an opinion. I don't want to be offensive. And he said, yeah, they don't believe in Vaidhi sadhana, just Raganuga. They skip over that. So that would be an example of thinking that I'm on a higher platform than I am, and the dangers that could transpire as a result. So, why would a pure devotee desire liberation when he's premanjana churita bhakti vilochana, when he's seeing Krishna? Why would he? He's already with Krishna. So what's there to be liberated from? When we're not seeing Krishna, there's a lot to be liberated from. We want to be liberated from the maya of this world. So then Prabhupada gives a definition. He gives a definition of the Mahamantra. Krishna, please engage me in your service. I'm paraphrasing in a more colloquial language. Krishna, I'm burned out by Maya, and Maya is always inviting me, and sometimes I give in to the invitations, but I'm praying that I don't give in to the invitation. I'm praying to you that I just have the desire to serve you and not to serve Maya. So that shows the mood of the beginning devotee, that Maya has just encompassed me so much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Maya, I don't want you. I want Krishna. I want that desire. So that Maya is pushing from behind. It's pushing the devotee. And that remembrance of past suffering pushes the devotee, and the desire to become free from that suffering and never go back into it is good. Otherwise, there's a chance we may be attracted by it. So that the world is bad, this kind of negative thing that sometimes seems a little fanatical or just unbalanced. Why are devotees always talking about how bad everything is? Well, at a certain stage of bhakti, that's good, and I want to get out of the material world, and so on that level of bhakti, or that level of realization, that actually helps. But you have Prabodhananda Saraswati, who said he sees the whole world sukhayam, full of happiness. He said that's how a devotee sees. Purna sukhayana. Vishwa Purna Sukhayate. Vishwa means the world or the universe. Vishwa Purna means full, and Sukhayate, full of happiness. Devotee sees the world full of happiness. So that appears to be a contradiction, because we hear how bad it is. Brahma, Bhuvana, Loka. Anywhere you go, even to Brahma Loka, it's not good. It's not good in Brahma Loka, Ben, pretty much. It's not good anywhere, because it doesn't get better than that. So what's going on here? Now, Prabodhananda Saraswati is saying the whole world is full of happiness. Well, if you see Krishna everywhere, and you see Krishna in everything, you'd be pretty happy, wouldn't you? And if you see Krishna everywhere and see Krishna in everything, why would you want to leave that situation? And why would you be talking about how bad this situation is? Because even when death comes, you would see that as Krishna. And when Prabhupada was asked by a reporter during the Pakistan-Indian War about the bombs, he said, well, as devotees, we would see the bombs as Krishna. Time I am, the destroyer of the worlds. I've come to destroy. So if you see Krishna everywhere, obviously you're going to be very happy. And obviously, if you see Krishna everywhere, then you're not going to be walking around saying, oh, everything is so bad and the world's so bad and I'm suffering. You're going to be walking around saying, everything's so good, everything is fantastic, the world is everywhere I look, I just see happiness. So that can't be artificially realized, but that is the vision of the pure devotee, which is why the pure devotee is not praying to Krishna, get me out of this miserable material world, because he's not in the miserable material world. You might say his body is in it, but his consciousness is not in it. So why would he be praying to get out of it if he's not even in it in the first place? That wouldn't make sense. So I just wanted to state that. But the essential point that I'm making here, aside from this philosophical point of the pure devotee being liberated and not needing or having the impetus to get out of the world, is that however we pray, however we think, it has to be aligned with our level of Krishna consciousness and our realization. Otherwise, it becomes, for lack of a better word, it'll become weird and it won't help you because it's not realistic. And maybe we could say something like, we're doing weightlifting and you're not a weightlifter, and I say, here, go, here's 100 kgs, go lift it. You'll break your back, pull a muscle, you'll damage yourself. Get a hernia or whatever, because you can't lift that much. And I say, well, here's 20 kgs, can you lift that? No problem. And you lift that. Okay, 30. So you work your way up. So we don't want to lift a level of Krishna consciousness that is way above our ability to lift, just because we want to. And it's fantastic that you want to be a pure devotee and not have the desire, not ever have the desire to go back to Godhead and all these things we can aspire for. But what is our present condition? And according to our present condition, we act accordingly, and we think or we pray according to that condition. And just because we understand what the higher condition is, we can't imitate it. We can pray for it. Yes, I would like to be in that higher position, but presently I must pray according to the position I'm in. So if you find yourself looking at this world and saying, the world is so bad. Look at the world today. Right now, we're in the midst of the coronavirus. People are dying. All around us, people are suffering due to the illness. Everything is stopped. People have to stay home. The world is horrible. We can think that way, and it becomes an impetus. And if we do think that way, and it is our impetus, then we go with that because it helps us. But on a higher level, for a higher devotee, he sees that everything is the mercy of Krishna, everything is his will, everything is perfect, everything is beautiful, Krishna is everywhere. And he doesn't react that way. He wouldn't react that way. Now, when he preaches, then you might say, but Prabhupada preached about the nature of this world. Yeah, because he was preaching to us, because we needed to hear that. But when Prabhupada saw how bad the world was, or discussed it on a personal level, he was discussing it in relationship to the suffering other people go through. You never heard Prabhupada say, oh, this world is so bad, I hate it, I just want to get out of here. You never heard him talking like that. Because that wasn't his realization. His realization was, this is a bad place for everyone, and we want to get everyone out of this world. And I am in this world, not because I chose, but because Krishna wants me here to serve. So I think that's an important realization. We talk, oh, the world is bad, I want to get out, I don't like it. That's how we talk, because that's our realization, and that helps us. But where do you see Prabhupada talking about that personally? He's talking about it to us. Everywhere you go, there's old age, there's disease, there's birth, there's death. That's for us. And he's trying to convince us because we're avoiding that. We don't think like that. We don't want to, as we've been talking, we don't want to think about death. It's a very morbid thought. It's very dark. We want to think about life and what we're going to achieve and what's going to happen next year and so on and so forth. And then Prabhupada comes and says, you could die at any moment. Did you know that? Why don't you admit that? And your body's getting old and there's nothing you can do to stop it and you will become sick. Who wants to hear that? But we hear that and it starts to resonate with us. And the more we hear that, the more we become detached. Now, here's the interesting point. The interesting point is that ultimately detachment comes from bhakti. It doesn't come from knowing about the miseries. But that's how Prabhupada had to start. He had to start with that. Now, just because you know there's misery doesn't mean that ultimately you can become perfectly renounced. It means it pushes you to Krishna consciousness. That's what's going to push us. You can't be, don't turn around, don't look behind you because you can't be happy. And you've already come from that position. So now I'm pushing you to Krishna. Don't turn around, keep going. There's just suffering behind you. And so I have these I'm poking you in the back, pushing you. There's suffering behind you. Just try to understand. There's death lurking. You're going to get old. Your dreams are going to be spoiled. So that keeps pushing you, pushing me, pushing us. And eventually Prabhupada pushes us close enough to Krishna that attraction for Krishna is what detaches us. But during that process, the remembrance of the misery of this world, it's healthy for us because we're attached to that. And because we're attached to it, we have to hear how that is not going to work for us. It's not going to make us happy. So therefore, there's all this discussion. We call it Gyan, or Jnana Mishra Bhakti. The world is bad, the world is suffering, etc. You've been here for millions of lives, you're still not happy, you'll never be happy, etc., etc. That's the pushing. But the attraction to Krishna is the pulling. And when you advance to the stage of ruchi, then your whole bhakti is pulled. You don't walk around saying, oh, sky is falling, the end of the world, everything is bad. You don't become this ultimate pessimist. But until that stage, a healthy level of pessimism is good. As we read from the Gita 13th chapter, verses 8 through 13, the items of knowledge, perception of the evils of birth, old age, disease, and death. That's an item of knowledge. You have to know this because it detaches. But Bhagavatam says, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitam. It's the consequence of bhakti is detachment. That's ultimately where it comes from. That's the natural way to be detached. This other way, hearing about the miseries, observing the miseries, is not the most natural way. It's not sustaining. Because we all know, we all have experience. You can know something's not going to make you happy and you do it anyway. Because in the moment, it gives you some gratification. Raso varjam rasopiyasya. And then Krishna says, you'll become detached when you have a taste. So you become detached initially by knowledge, but your detachment is sustained by taste and attraction. So that's why Prabhupada's talking all the time, the world is bad, but that's a very low level of realization. As you get higher in realization, you would only talk about the world being bad because you're preaching that to other people who need to hear it. But personally, when you see how bad the world is, it's not so much an impetus to go back to Krishna, it's an impetus to preach to the people in the world that are suffering. Because you're already in Krishna. You already now are connected with Krishna so much that you don't feel that you need to go back to Godhead. You basically feel you already are back to Godhead. So, I hope that's clear. And so, if we discuss the miseries of the world and that helps you, that's an impetus. And you think, oh, this world is so bad. Now look what's happening, coronavirus. Who knows who's going to be the next victim? Maybe it could be my relative, a friend, a devotee I love. And then you think, oh, this world is so bad. And then you think, I just want to get out of here. That's good. because that's the level you're at. And whenever these things happen, I always tell devotees, I say, yes, although you recognize that there's so many problems, the conclusion is we made a mistake coming here, because that's the nature of this world. That's the conclusion we come to, and that conclusion becomes our impetus. Now, that was the introduction. That was quite a long introduction, wasn't it? But I think useful for what we're dealing with. So, I don't know if Kamini, are you here? I have to go back and see who's here, so I'm just going to scroll through. Is Kamini, yeah, Kamini is watching. So Kamini, we are on page 7 now, is that true? That's what my document says. Srimad Bhagavatam 115.41. This is where we left off for reading. And as I said yesterday, that's what I said yesterday. We are reading from Prabhupada's quotes. We're allowing ourselves to get absorbed in hearing from Srila Prabhupada sufficiently. Okay. So I asked, was that helpful, the introduction? And it was only helpful to Kamaniya. I guess it wasn't helpful to anybody else, because she's the only one who answered. Only kidding. Hopefully it was helpful to all of you. I think it's an extremely important point, because sometimes it's confusing how to act, because you read, this is how a pure devotee thinks, this is how a pure devotee responds to various situations. And then you try to imitate that and it doesn't work. I want to clean my lens. Don't go away. I just want to clean it. See if that's any better. Because that looked like I was a bit fuzzy. So, yes. So, we read about the realizations, the vision, the feelings, the heart, and so forth of the pure devotee. And that's what we aspire for. But imitation is dangerous. We can't think we're on a level we're not on. And if we do, we try to act on that level, and it doesn't work. For example, and I forgot the example because I was reading one of the quotes. Yeah, okay. Now we're getting a response. I just want to make sure you're all breathing, alive, paying attention. Yeah. So I forgot the example, but anyway, I think the point is obvious. If we try to lift 200 pounds, it's not good. We aspire to lift 200 pounds. That's different. We aspire to have the realizations of the great devotees. That's different. But actually having them and think, I was thinking of the example of Krishnadas Kaviraj. Krishnadas Kaviraj says, I am lower than a worm's stool, and if you say my name, then what did he say? You become sinful, or you become contaminated, become unfortunate. Maybe all of them if you say my name. Now, if we start trying to get the realization, or pretending we have the realization, that I'm lower than a worm's stool, I'm trying to feel that. That's how he feels. So I think I should feel that because he's the acharya, he's the example, he's the pure devotee. So I'm going to try to embody this feeling, and let's go into a guided meditation, as I would like you to meditate on stool, and then envision yourself as a worm, and you're looking at the stool, but actually, no, you don't envision yourself as a worm. You're looking at a worm and stool, and then you're envisioning yourself even lower than that. Like, why would we do that? And what kind of insanity would that create within us, right? Worm and stool meditation. Is that, guided visualization. I'm a worm and stool. Could you imagine that? Hare Krishna. Wouldn't that be interesting? You get the point. So for us, it's a tattva. It's something we observe. The pure devotee feels lower than a worm and stool is another way of saying everybody's better than me, even a worm. So can we experience that everyone's better than us, even an insect, even a worm? No. So how do we understand that? Well, we understand the principle behind it, that this high level of humility manifests on the stage of prema. And as we've heard, the Mahabhagavat thinks everyone's better than him. So in that feeling, that vision, that everyone's better, even the worms in stool are better. Wow, that's incredible. So for us, it's just a fact that we look at. It's a tattva. Okay, I'm trying to understand how this pure devotee would see. I could kind of maybe understand that he sees everyone better than him. He sees somehow or other I don't have bhakti and everyone's engaged in Krishna service. Okay, that's a little easier to understand, but even the insects are better than me. So then we're trying to understand that and say, he feels so insignificant, like a blade of grass, just insignificant. And so we meditate on that. It's a philosophical point for us. We can't really enter into that mood. If we did, it wouldn't be healthy, it wouldn't be right. So that's the point. So we see it and we can think, yes, I aspire for this level of humility where I would think even the animals and the insects are even better than me. Well, maybe you wouldn't even aspire, maybe you wouldn't even want to aspire for it. You think, oh, that's not even desirable. But in theory, we would want to aspire for it because that's the highest form of humility. But we understand that that is something, I just kind of see it from a distance. I put it on my head. I realize I can't understand this. I can only try to understand this. And it's a very much from a distance understanding because it's so abstract for me. It's just unusual for me in my present state, because in my present state I actually want to be honored by everyone. I mean, if you tell me I'm great, that makes me feel good. If you tell me you're lower than a worm and stool, that doesn't make me feel good. So I don't even really want to feel that way. So how could I imitate it when I'm in the state where I just want you to praise me? I don't want to feel lower than a worm and stool. But I understand philosophically, yes, this is what happens when someone has love of Krishna. And I try to get my head around it. How is that? They feel that kind of humility. What's going on within their heart that they would feel that way? How are they seeing you think about it, you discuss about it, but you realize it's just like textbook knowledge. You're just looking at this without realization. Then you're safe. And the realization, when you get it, and you get it because of your advancement. So then, as you advance in Krishna consciousness over the years, it starts to become more clear. And then a little bit of this feeling that I'm lower starts to enter, and you start feeling, yeah, I'm not as great as I thought. I'm not one that I can go around criticizing other devotees. So you start to see the little humility is developing in your heart. You're appreciating others. You're seeing them better. Then you're starting to understand a little more, okay, what's going on in Krishnadas Kaviraj's mind. He's seeing everyone as a devotee. You're starting to look at non-devotees. You're seeing their Krishna's in their heart, their body's a temple. Things are opening up, clouds are dispersing. You're understanding a little more of that lower than a worm and stool. Not, you still may be light years away, but you realize you're getting closer. That's our position. So this discussion began with the idea that should I desire liberation? Should I desire to go back to Godhead? Because it seems contrary to pure bhakti. And it is contrary to pure bhakti, but when I don't have pure bhakti, my desires have to be aligned with what is going to help me. And so what helps me on one level of bhakti doesn't help in another. I heard a story this morning. It's kind of funny. So I don't know if you know this, but in the beginning of the movement, Prabhupada said, you should eat up to your neck. Did you know they ever heard that? And actually, we used to do that. We actually used to eat on feast days. Our philosophy was, we thought we should eat till we can't eat anymore. If we eat beyond the neck, we're going to vomit. So we would do crazy things, like eat, and then sit back in certain postures so the food would go down so we could eat more, because we thought this was our seva, to eat as much as possible. That was what was supposed to be done. So then later on in the movement, Prabhupada said, quarter water, half air, half food. So we're basically not eating up to the neck, we're only eating up to half the stomach. And the devotee, but he said, but Prabhupada, you said we should eat up to the neck. And Prabhupada said, well, if you believed me then believe me now. Kind of a funny story. But the moral of it was that Prabhupada was adjusting because the devotees were more advanced. So what I should believe, what I should understand, how I should think, and so forth, at one level of bhakti, changes as I progress. So for most devotees, at least in the beginning, desiring to go back to Godhead is a very strong impetus, and it's very good. And walking around, I don't care, birth after birth, Krishna, whatever you want. Yeah, and then a few months later, you see him, on the street smoking marijuana with his girlfriend. So better he kept the mood that marijuana and girlfriends are causes of entanglement in the world. Better he thinks that way, right? Okay, I just want to go back to see if there was some comment. If humility is a gemstone, then the road to Krishna is paved with this gemstone. Yeah, I don't even remember all these things I said, but I like that one. If humility is a gemstone, then the road to humility is paved with gemstones. Hey, that's a good one. Glad I said it. It makes me feel like useful. I could say something useful. And poetic. Didn't know I had it in me. Question. We have information from Srila Prabhupada that if one becomes a pure devotee and reaches return to the spiritual world, that he liberates his relative. What if someone... No, it just says pure devotee. It doesn't have to go back to God. What if someone does not reach that state? No, Prabhupada just said, you become a devotee, your relatives will become devotees. Now, the more pure you become, the more generations, because sometimes you hear 7 or 11 or 21. Which one is it? Well, more pure you are, the more generations. So, basically Prabhupada said they'll become devotees. And then once they become devotees, then it's up to them what happens. But at least, like, when I became a devotee, excuse me, it's allergy season here. When I became a devotee, my mother was very unhappy. And then 6 years after I became a devotee, 6.5 years, she died. She left her body, cancer. And then I thought, well, I became a devotee, so that was the best service I could have rendered. And, to make her happy, I could have given up bhakti. So even though I wasn't a very pure devotee, at least I was a devotee engaged in devotional service. And Prabhupada said, if you follow my instructions, you engage in devotional service. You're a pure devotee. Yesterday I heard an interesting example. You'll like this. So, what is a miner? Someone who's mining. What are they called? They're called miners. And if they're mining coal, what are they called? They're called coal miners. So one who engages in bhakti is called a devotee. And if they're given the process of pure bhakti, and Prabhupada gave us the process of pure bhakti, what we're following is pure bhakti. We're not following karma mishra or jnana mishra bhakti. We're not doing bhakti to improve our material position, and we're not doing bhakti ultimately to get out of this world, to get liberated from suffering. Ultimately, we're doing bhakti to please Guru and Krishna. So if one works in a mine, he's a miner. If he works in a coal mine, he's a coal miner. If one does bhakti, he's called a devotee. And if one is engaged in the process of pure bhakti, what's he called? He's called a pure devotee. So because the process Prabhupada gave us is a process of pure devotional service, so we're called pure devotees, and that's why Prabhupada said all his disciples are pure devotees, inasmuch as they follow. So you're a pure devotee, and therefore your relatives will be in a great position. Okay, so Kamaniya, can you put up Srimad Bhagavatam? We're starting on the top of page 7. For those of you who have the document, well, I turned the document into a PDF, so I don't know if it's still page 7. Probably should be. This is the top of page 7. It's from the Bhagavatam 1:1541. And this is entitled, "The Body is a Production of the Mind." All is manifested by the temporary embodiment of the material body, which is a production of the mind at the time of death. So I like this last sentence. I think this is another, like we've been talking in this class about things we can meditate on, like certain vision angle. And I like this meditation, this last. The body is a production of the mind at the time of death. So, I mean, just get the visual. If you could design a new body, like what kind of body would you want? And of course, I don't recommend this meditation because it would get you another material body. But I say this because this is actually what we're doing all the time. For example, you see somebody who's very beautiful. You might think, oh, I wish I was beautiful like that person. Or a guy sees a man with like really strong, good physique, and you're like the guy's overweight, and he thinks, I wish I had a body like that. Or a woman sees a woman who's very thin, and a woman is not as thin, and she thinks, I wish I had a body like that. Or the right curves in the right places, or the certain color hair, or color eyes, a certain color skin, texture of skin, a certain kind of face, and so forth. And so this is quite common because the nature of material life is you always want something better, and that's why people do plastic surgery, or they wear the what do you call those? Put in your eyes, glasses in your eyes. I forgot the name. Contact lenses, and then you can get contact lenses in different colors, so it changes the color of your eye. And we like wearing different clothes that makes us look different. So we're kind of dressing ourselves up. And so think of all the things people think about in terms of their body. I wish I had a body like this. Wish I had a body. I wish I didn't have a body like this. Wish I had hair like this. Wish I didn't have hair like this. Wish I had hair at all. So then, okay, kind of like formulated this idea, this conception. I wish I would be born as an American rather than whatever. And then Prabhupada says here, the material body is a production of the mind. So the mind is producing the body, and then the next body comes. They might say, but I don't even like the body I have. Why would I produce this body? Well, yeah, you have to have the karmic points to get the exact body that your mind thought of. But generally, it's close. According to how much you could pay, that's how much you got. You designed it. So it's interesting. We're designing our next body with our mind, like, it's like a computer program, and I'm drawing it, an avatar. This is going to be my next body. That's dangerous. Don't design your next body. So when you see beautiful man, beautiful woman, someone, you're born with black hair, you're Indian, every one in your country has black hair, and you see someone with blonde hair and blue eyes, you're like, I wish I had blonde hair and blue eyes. Uh-oh, watch out. Be careful. Because you're designing your next body. You don't want to design your next body. No, I don't want to be someone with beautiful blonde, long hair and blue eyes. I want to be Krishna's servant. Yeah, so be careful. Otherwise, you design a new body. Interesting, right? So let's go to the next one. It's 3:31:41. And we're going to read the verse and purport. And I'm just going to wait till that comes up. Yes, Marco wants blessings to develop love of Krishna. Whatever I can give you, they're yours. Mm-hmm. And Prabhupada is blessing us also. So this is 3:31, and I've titled this, If a man dies thinking of a woman, he becomes a woman. If a woman dies thinking of a man, she becomes a man. And here's the translation. This is the story of Puranjana. A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form. Oh, let me read it here because I think it's wrong. Hold on. A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. It's just, this verse of the Bhagavatam is just kind of like playing with us a little bit and saying, almost making a joke out of it, and say, this person who's now born as a woman, and this is true for many of us, maybe all of us, this person who was born as a woman was actually a man in her last life who was attached to a woman, and now as a woman, she's attached to a man who she was in her last life. It's kind of like poking fun at the whole process, which is like so interesting. You know, sometimes I think like that, you know. I see an attractive woman and then I think, probably I was a woman in my last life. So, you know, just remember. And ladies, you know, you see attractive man, you think, I was probably a man in my last life. I'm attracted to a man, but that was probably me. And the height of the folly would be, imagine seeing a picture of a very beautiful man or woman, and you're very attracted to. And this is, let's say, a picture of a movie star or someone who's no longer alive, maybe a movie star from the 30s or 40s. It looks very, very beautiful. And you look at this picture and you think, wow, this person's very beautiful. And then you become attracted. And the height of the folly would be, of course, we don't know if this is true, but just imagine for the sake of discussion, that was actually you in your past life. And now you're sexually attracted to yourself. Like Mad Magazine, right? But that's the folly. That's the folly of it. That it's not an impossibility, is it? That in this life you could see a picture of a beautiful man or woman who lived 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, and it was actually you, and you're attracted to them like it's somebody else. That would be weird. Maybe we can make a science fiction movie out of that. Okay. So we're going to read the purport. From this verse, it appears that a woman is also supposed to have been a man in his, parenthesis, her previous life, and due to his attachment to his wife, he now has the body of a woman. Bhagavad Gita confirms this. A man gets his next life's birth according to what he thinks of at the time of death. If someone is too attached to his wife, naturally he thinks of the wife at the time of death. And in the next life, he takes the body of a woman. Similarly, if a woman thinks of her husband at the time of death, naturally she gets the body of a man in her next life. Now you might say, but in the Shastra it says a woman should be chaste to her husband. She should be devoted to her husband. And if her husband dies, and we have heard that in previous times the woman was so attached she didn't want to live without him. In meditating on him, she would burn herself in the fire, the funeral pyre, his funeral pyre. Wow. Thinking of him. And then, so Shastra says, and this is good, then she will become a man. And why is that good? Because it's easier, technically speaking, easier for a man. At least it was said in that way, that it's easier for a man to become Krishna conscious. But of course now, by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, sometimes I think it's easier for a woman. Women don't have such big egos. They have more faith, and they have more of a service attitude. But it was said that way. But for us, this verse is just saying, hello, wake up, be careful what you're thinking of at the time of death. Now, we've been reading something in the last few days that I think is worth repeating, because it's very practical in relation to this verse. What are you going to think of? What am I going to think of? What are we going to think of at the time of death? What we're most attached to, right? Think about it. Imagine you're told you're going to be leaving your body next week. You have the coronavirus. You're probably not going to make it more than a week or two. What would your first thought be? It would go to the things you're most attached to. Obviously, the body. I'm going to leave my body. That's what I'm most attached to. And then my family, my husband, my wife. And then you just go down the list. But I just bought my new whatever, my new camera, or my new computer, or my new guitar, my new keyboard, and now I can't use it. My new software, I was just beginning this project. Whatever we're most attached to, obviously, it's going to be hard to pull from it. So what we're learning, if we summarize it all, what Bhagavatam is saying, it's giving examples of like Bhishma Dev, Parikshit Maharaj, and so forth, of people who are fully meditating on Krishna at the time of death. Like perfection. This is it. Totally detached. Parikshit Maharaj, totally detached. Parikshit Maharaj, totally detached. Bhishma Dev, totally detached. This is how we have to leave the world. We have to be totally detached. And when we're totally detached, then we can meditate on Krishna. That's the whole point. And how can you be totally detached when you leave the world if you're not practicing detachment? So this verse is an interesting verse. It's a wake-up call. Okay, if you're attached to something in this world, that's what you're going to become in your next life. What do we joke? That hippies will become cockroaches because they're so dirty. So, it's right here in the Bhagavatam. It's interesting, isn't it? So that's why, we talked about this yesterday, but when Shastra says, and Prabhupada says, don't become too attached, we think, but it's natural to be attached to your children. It's natural to be attached to your parents, your husband, your wife, all these things. And Bhagavatam says, become attached to a pure devotee. You want to be attached? Become attached to a pure devotee. That's what you should be attached to. Got to plug in my computer. Hold on a second. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Kapila Dev told his mother, that same attachment you have for anything in this world, if it's for a pure devotee, you're good. So yes, be attached to a pure devotee. Then you're good. But anything else, it's dangerous. So that's there it is. It's kind of like the essence of everything. Be careful what you become attached to, because you're likely going to think of that when you die. And better be attached to Krishna and his pure devotees, because then you'll think of that. Simple, right? Simple philosophy. So now we're going to go through the verses of the Gita. which you've gone through before, some of them. This is the 8th chapter of the Gita, and this is all talking about remembering Krishna. And I just wanted to read these verses now, because contextually from all this discussion we have, then these verses may pop out in your mind a little more, like, oh wow, I never thought of it that way. So this is Bhagavad Gita 8.7, the essential importance of remembering Krishna. And probably you already know this verse. Kamini is going to put it up, and I'll read it before it comes up, because we know this verse. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting with your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. You will attain me without doubt. So, what's being said here? Whatever you do, think of Krishna. Now, I wrote Prabhupada a letter once with a doubt if thinking of Krishna, is it the goal, or is it service the goal? Or like what are we trying to do here? Or can we even think of Krishna? Is that even possible 24/7? And so should we just try to be engaged 24/7? Or what is it? I was confused. I mean, you might think, well, that's kind of, I should have known the answer, but I was finding that when I was very engaged, I wasn't thinking of Krishna. Sometimes you're so busy thinking about this and that and how to organize things, you realize I wasn't really Krishna conscious. So I wrote Prabhupada. I said, if I just sit down and do kirtan and give class, preach, study, then I can think of Krishna. But when I have to manage everything, I don't. So should I just reduce the management? What should I do? Prabhupada said it's not like that. It's just, it's not that doing all the service is going to be a problem. Even though it was a problem for me, it's not meant to me. But the significant thing that Prabhupada said that struck me, like, boom. Did you ever read something and you just feel like, wow, that was like, or like a punch caught off guard, someone just punches you. Wow, where did that punch come from? Like in boxing sometimes. It seems like out of nowhere, one of the boxers gets punched and he's like, where did that come from? Prabhupada said, the whole point of everything is to remember Krishna. That's the whole point of everything. Wow. The whole point of everything is to remember Krishna. Okay, remember that one. The whole point of everything is to remember Krishna. So then, if we expand on that, we can say, Prabhupada's saying, the whole point of my coming to America is to help you remember Krishna. The whole point of my books is to help you remember Krishna. The whole point of Kirtan is to help you remember Krishna. The whole point of Bhagavatam is to help you. So the whole point of everything. So everything we're doing in the Krishna consciousness movement, Krishna consciousness is to become Krishna conscious. Krishna conscious means to remember Krishna all the time. So you might think, well, Mahatma Prabhu, isn't that obvious? Why were you so struck like a punch in the face? Because, as I said, I was very busy. I was a temple president. Do this, do that, worry about this, organize this. And in those days of just managing, I never felt that I was very Krishna conscious. I was thinking about my service. I wasn't engaged in material activity, but I didn't think I was absorbed in thinking of Krishna. In fact, I felt I wasn't thinking of Krishna at all. And so then the letter comes. He said, no, the whole point is to become absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Prabhupada didn't say the whole point is to think of Krishna. He said the whole point is to become absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Absorbed. Think of a sponge. It's full of water. It's absorbed. It's absorbed with water. Wow. So that's really an important instruction. If ever we think, well, the goal is just to accomplish something, not that the goal isn't to accomplish, but if we think that's the only goal. No, the goal of accomplishing is to set the framework upon which we can become absorbed in thinking of Krishna. And then we go back to the first verse of the 7th chapter, Maya Sakta Manaparta. Hear about Maya Asakta, attached, my Asakta, attached, Mana, your mind attached to me. Maya Sakta Manaparta, Yogam Junjan Madashaya. How, by taking shelter of me with your mind attached to me, you can practice Krishna consciousness. That's what it's all about. And this makes sense because Dayato Vishayam Punsam, we know Krishna says, look at wherever your mind's attached to, that's where you're going. That's where you're going to be pulled. And that's what you're going to do. So it begins by contemplation. Dayato Vishayam Punsam. Contemplation on what? On Vishaya, sense gratification. And then you're going to get pulled into it, and then you're going to do it, whatever it is. So if right now, today, you meditate on sense gratification, and you meditate on it long enough, and you keep thinking about it over and over again, probably at some point you're going to engage in it. Oh, last week I met this guy and he's so attractive and I can't stop thinking about him, and I don't know if he likes me, and he's not really a devotee, but maybe I could make him. You're thinking. What's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. So Prabhupada's saying that thinking process, Krishna, 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 only Krishna, Krishna. And one of the ways to be absorbed in thinking about Krishna, which Prabhupada taught us, was talk about Krishna, talk about Krishna. Because whatever you talk about, that's where your mind goes, and that's where your attachment's going to go, and that's where your actions are going to go. So it's pretty simple, actually. It's so simple we don't get it. The problem is we're attached to material things. And so we don't want to cultivate material attachments, because then at the time of death, that's what we're going to remember. So Kamani is asking, what if we're attached to Guru? Yes. Very good. I'm trying to think of the Sanskrit to that verse by Kapila Dev. I'm going brain dead. But Kapila Dev says the same attachment you have to, maybe someone knows the verse, the same attachment you have, it's on the tip of my tongue, but brain is not working so well. The same attachment you have to people of this world, if you have that attachment to the devotees, then you're perfect. Your life is perfect. That's perfection. So yes, become attached to Guru. And Prabhupada said, I think I mentioned this the other day, Prabhupada said, he was asked this question, and he said, wherever I am, Krishna is. So if you remember me, you remember Krishna. You're remembering Krishna. Right? Because how can you remember Guru? Guru is one who's given you Krishna. How could you remember Guru and not remember Krishna? They go together. So yes, I think it's natural to remember Guru at the time of death. So, yeah, and I already answered a question before I answered it. Marco says the meaning of Yukta Vairagya, use everything. So, Vrindavan is saying, yikes, I don't want to come back as a black cat in my next life. So it sounds like you're attached to your black cat. Yeah. Okay. Vrindavan doesn't want to come back as a black cat. So what's the instruction there? Well, the story of Jad Bharat. Read the story of Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat became attached to a deer. The deer was just born. His mother died, and there he was. And Jad Bharat's living in the forest, and not Jad Bharat, Bharat Maharaj. He renounced everything and he's doing his sadhana. And then here's this deer, and he's like, okay, you should take care of the deer. Yeah, shouldn't we take care of the deer? But it said Grihasthas should take care of animals. They should feed them. Okay, but he became he started to get attached to the deer, and they had this like relationship. So is it bad to be attached to your cat or a dog? It's like Prabhupada said. He just said, attachment to anyone that you're with is natural, but too much attachment is dangerous. Too much attachment is not good. And why is too much attachment not good? Because that's what we think of at the time of death. We don't want to, Vrindavan, you don't want to think of a black cat. Definitely not. You want to think of a black boy, but not a black cat. So Krishna Karshani says, yes, but if we will not attach to our own husband or wife, we will be attached to husband or wife, another person. She said, I said that. I agree with that. It seems that on our level, it's difficult to be only attached to only Guru and Krishna. No, so we go back to Prabhupada's statement. It's natural to be attached to husband and wife. I mean, how can you have a marriage? How could you have any relationship with anyone if there's not a healthy degree of attachment? But a healthy degree of attachment is not degrading. So I should be attached to my husband and wife. Otherwise, I'm going to get attached to someone else's husband or wife. 100%. Yes, it's a fact. So, and Prabhupada obviously understands that. But what Prabhupada's saying is, yes, attached, but not so attached that becomes a impediment to your bhakti. That's the point, right? So certain degree of attachment becomes an impetus. Just like you and I, we all have certain needs. If those needs aren't fulfilled, then we're going to try to fulfill them. And then we become absorbed in fulfilling needs rather than thinking of Krishna. So the idea is we fulfill the need, and because the need is fulfilled, it helps us in our Krishna consciousness. But if we become attached to that need and we want to nurture it more and more, then that becomes a meditation on fulfilling that need excessively rather than being Krishna conscious. Just like, when you get really hungry, all you can think about is eating. Have you ever been in that situation where I can't talk to you, I can't do anything, call me back later, I have to eat, I'm starving. I just have to get something in my body. My body is craving food right now. Some of us are more like that, some of us less like that. But all of us, to some degree, when we reach a certain point of hunger, it's like beep, 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 where we have to eat something. That's all I can think about now is where is prasadam, or how to cook prasadam, or go to the store and buy something. Go to Govinda's restaurant. I have to eat. And then once we eat, everything is fine. Now we can be normal again. Right? You agree? So, it's just like that. It's a need once fulfilled out of the mind. Okay, I'm attached to women, or if I'm a woman, I'm attached to man. I get married. Okay, now I can focus on Krishna. I have my wife, my husband. I have a need for children. It's a burning need, psychological, physical. I have so much affection I want to give to children. So I have my own children. I show them affection. I raise them. I take care of them. It fulfills that need. Fulfilled in a way which helps my Krishna consciousness, not fulfilled in a way which becomes an impediment to my Krishna consciousness. An attachment which is healthy, which nurtures my attachment to Krishna. That's the point. So when Shastra is talking about don't become too attached to family, to husband and wife, specifically it's really talking about materialistic people. It's not talking generally about people practicing bhakti, because generally people practicing bhakti develop a sufficient level of detachment, not maybe as complete as we would want, but we naturally understand this principle. So, natural to be attached, don't be so attached that you forget Krishna. That was the point. Right? And sometimes that's not easy. Paran Ananda says, we understand attachment to the Guru in the situation separation stage is attached to his instructions. Yeah. But in any stage, attachment to the Guru is attached to following what he wants you to do. Who has the Sanskrit to that verse? Maybe I can look it up. It's driving me crazy. It's this, I think I know the Sanskrit. I would like to read that verse to you. If I can find it, that would give me great pleasure. Ha ha! You can all applaud me now. I found it. That means my brain still works partially. So this is 3:25:20. Actually, I never memorized this verse. I memorized the English. Prasangam ajaram pasham. Prasangam means attachment, and ajaram means strong, and pasham means entanglement. Strong attachment, the entanglement of strong attachment. Atmana kavayo vidu. Atmana means of the soul. So, in strong entanglement of attachment of the soul, the embodied being. And kavaya means learned man, and vidu means know. Every learned man knows that strong attachment, saeva sadushu krito. Pasham. Every learner man knows that strong attachment is an entanglement in material life. Sa eva sadushu krito. But that same attachment, krita sadushu, when applied to the sadhus, the devotees, moksha dvaram apavritam. Moksha means liberation, dwaram means the path or the door, and apavritam means opens up. So that attachment which entangles one in the material world, the same thing, that same attachment, when it is for the devotee of Krishna, opens up the door of liberation. Let me read the translation. Maybe make it read the purport. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit's soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door to liberation. So, yes. Whatever you're attached to, it works on you. So whatever you're around, the energy of what it is, then it infects us. So if you're around someone who's very elevated, that's a good infection. If you're around someone who's not very elevated, that's a bad infection. Can I read the purport? Let's read a little bit, see what Prabhupada says. Here it is clearly stated that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage in conditional life. And the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed. It simply has to be transferred. Simply has to be transferred. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness. Attachment for Krishna or his devotees is called Krishna consciousness. So, there's your answer. Attachment to Krishna or things in relation to Krishna is called Krishna consciousness. Attachment to material things is called material consciousness. Kamaniya says, I remember in a class last year or the year before, you talked about the 0 point and how that point is different for different people. That really stuck with me. I found it super helpful. The 0 point meaning what you need to become balanced. And so Sannyasi needs less. Grihastha, householders, they need more. We're all individual. But the point is to come to this bowl. It's like, how much do you need to eat? So sometimes people need a lot to eat, and sometimes people need a little. And if a person eats a lot, you may think, oh, what a glutton. But that's just what he needs so he can function normally. So then it's not a lot in that sense. It's just what he needs. It's not a matter of a lot or a little. This is what he needs. And when he gets what he needs, then he can focus on what's next. So the 0 point is, how much do you need to be happy and balanced without being overly materially attached, and so that you can function in your spiritual life and in your material life. The 0 point. That's a good title for a book, right? So Toshan Krishna says, what if my wife has the desire to leave her body before I do, because she is afraid, scared of the suffering? I mean, the suffering that she'll go through if you leave before her. Ganesh was asking about the 0 point, and we just discussed it. So, Toshan Krishna. Well, I can tell you my realization. Sometimes when things get really bad or really difficult, sometimes I think, now would be a good time to leave my body, because I'm pretty detached from everything. So, and probably things would be easier dancing with Krishna than down here hassling with this and that. And then, of course, I think, well, I have my family, I have my disciples, people depend on me. That's a very selfish thought. But there's another thought that goes through my mind, additionally to that being selfish, is that if that's what I desire, Krishna, especially for his devotees, he fulfills that desire. And so I think, well, if ultimately I should be here, it would be better for service that I'm here. I shouldn't desire, oh Krishna, take me, because maybe he'll fulfill that desire. The desire of the devotee is, Krishna, if you want me to live, you want me to die, then I accept that. That's how a devotee prays. But I would be a little cautious about praying, okay, Krishna, just take me. Because we have a story of a devotee who left her body a year ago, Kartik. Well, it's not a year ago, it's a year and a half, or a year and 4 months. And the people who were with her when she got in the accident said that, or people who knew her, said in those last days she was just kind of feeling like, I don't really know what I have to do with my life. I don't see my purpose, and I don't like what I'm doing, and I just want to be Krishna conscious, and I just would like to go back to Godhead. Then that's what happened. Krishna fulfilled that desire. So I think we have to be careful what we desire and what we pray for, because Krishna may fulfill it. And so your wife, Toshan, if she prays like that, you may not have a wife anymore. Krishna may say, okay, all right. So your wife is thinking, no, not now. Later. Maybe like Krishna let me die a day before my husband. Well, may not work like that. So I would think, I understand her sentiment. I could totally relate to it. But I think the best thing, or the position we want to come to, is that say, okay, Krishna, whatever you want, that I will accept. And then have the faith that Krishna will give you the strength to deal with whatever happens. So if you lose your husband, then have faith that he'll give you the strength to be able to deal with it. That's what I would suggest. So Priyam Vadha Mura Li Dharam says, to be around someone very elevated is that something has to be earned, yes, but by their mercy, by great fortune, you may get in their association. So if you have the opportunity to be in the association of someone very elevated, just run and grab it. And don't worry whether you deserve it or not. Just get it. When I was a young devotee, there was this philosophy, I don't know where it came from, that when Mahaprasad comes, just get it. Like, you should always get things which are transcendental. You should just get them, grab them. So when the Mahaprasad came out, they would fight for it. It's like a football match, and they would dive on it. It was really weird. I mean, a bunch of 20-year-old boys don't know anything. But the mood was, if there's something good for your spiritual life, just get it. Don't even wonder whether you're qualified or not. Just get it. Okay. Kamini has notes on that class about the 0 point, I think. Yeah, but I think I explained it. The 0 point is, I think it's best understood in terms of, by analogies of bodily needs, like I need to sleep a certain amount, I need to eat a certain amount. And so then, do I need to be married, or is being single better? And how much do I need in my material life so that I'm comfortable, so I don't go completely crazy? And that varies from person to person. Because some people can live very simply, or I've lived in third world countries where it was very easy for people to become devotees. They'd move in the ashram, they'd live on the floor, they'd get up, take a cold shower. That's how they lived all their life. They were very poor. They didn't have beds. They didn't have hot water. So we would think, well, this devotee is so austere and so renounced. But the reality was, that's just normal for them. And then the American comes to the third world country, and they're used to their own private bathroom, central heating and air conditioning, a nice bed, and so many things. And we think, oh, look at this devotee. He's, he's very sensual. He's very this or that. But that one village boy sleeping on the floor and the other American sleeping on the bed, the experience was basically the same. It was 0. That was just 0 for them. That was their 0 point. Looked different. And of course, then you could say, well, as you advance, your 0 point should start diminishing. To some degree, that's true. But that's not the ultimate thing that Prabhupada looked at. Prabhupada looked at, while you were awake, while you were engaged in service, what was your consciousness and what were you doing? So these other things are kind of like background, what you need before you face the world. So take what you need before you face the world. It will be different for different people. But when you face the world, then you do that in pure bhakti. That was how, not, you can say, yeah, but what if he's a sannyasi? Yeah, of course, we understand. It has to be minimal. We're not saying unlimitedly extravagant, but your 0 point is slightly different for different people. It's not, you don't have an unlimited top end where you can just say, I need all these things. Then you're using that to rationalize. So we don't want to use it to rationalize. So now we have Paran Ananda. Sometimes it can be that maybe attached to the guru in a bad way. Female disciple may feel sexually attracted to the guru. Yeah, so that's not what this verse is saying. Obviously. Attachment to the guru or attachment to any devotee would be attachment to hearing from them, serving with them, being guided by them, pleasing them, and so forth. So, sexually attracted, probably I think what you mean is it's more subtle. It's not gross. Maybe they don't even know they're sexually attracted. But obviously, any kind of sexual attraction has to be guided by intelligence and formality and proper social position and so forth. So if I were a woman sexually attracted to my guru, what to do? I'd run in the nearest ice-cold lake and take a bath and get sober as soon as possible. I wouldn't kill myself, but I would do something drastic to sober myself. And I spoke with her. Who's her? Who were we talking about? A few days before. Oh yeah, this devotee we're talking about who left her body, and she said, I spoke with her a few days, and she said, I experienced everything. I want only Krishna. I want only Krishna. Yeah, she actually wanted to leave her body. And I know another devotee who also left her body around the same time, and I was told she was saying the same thing. So that made me think, okay, we have to be careful what we desire, because Krishna may fulfill that desire. And these devotees are this kind of feeling, I'm finished with this world. I just want to be with Krishna, and that's what Krishna did to them. So, yeah, be careful. You don't know what could happen. Be careful what you desire. Didn't Prabhupada say we should be greedy for prasadam? That's another 0-point discussion. Yeah, in the beginning, but not later on when you're more advanced. Then Prabhupada said no. Like, it's interesting because what helps you in one stage harms you in another. Depends on your consciousness. So it's like lesser. Like, here's a situation. So what are the lesser of two evils? So let's say in this situation, it's marijuana or prasadam. So what are the lesser of two evils? Well, better overeat prasadam than even undereat marijuana, right? Just like no marijuana. Okay. Well, say, if I eat a lot of sweets and a lot of pakoras and a lot of halava, I won't need the marijuana. Okay, just eat all the halava, pakoras, and simply wonderfuls you want. And so you eat it and you go, okay, I'm fine, I don't have to smoke. Okay, so in that case, better be greedy for prasadam than marijuana. But in the normal case, when you're not on that level, then you should simplify your eating. So it just depends on, who you are and who Prabhupada is talking to and in what situation. Yeah, you could say, yeah. The 0 point is a neutral or balanced spiritual pH, which will be different. It's not like, okay, pH has a factor, right? I forget how it's calculated. So, yeah, but it's different. What is a pH for you? What is alkaline, proper balance of alkaline and acidic for you may be different than another devotee. And if we go back to the point we're talking about, which Prabhupada is making, which is you don't want to become overly attached to anything in this world, because that's what you're going to think of when you die, and that's what you're going to become. And you want to cultivate attachment to Krishna. And how can you cultivate attachment to Krishna if other things, or you're more attracted to other things? So I grew up surfing. I love the beach. Even before I learned to surf, I was going to the beach and body surfing. And I could walk down to my corner, get a bus, transfer to another bus, and that would take me to the beach. And so things were safe in those days. So when I was young, I would go to the beach with my friends. I don't know, 11 or 12, we would go. And so I really liked the beach. I really liked body surfing. And then I became enamored by watching people surf, and I really wanted to do that. And I finally got a surfboard. And that became a real addiction for me. That became my sport of preference. I did all kinds of sports, but that was my sport of preference. And it became very much a meditation. And anyone who is very attached to any kind of sport knows that it's like it's encompassing, it absorbs you. So then, by Krishna's divine arrangement, I was able to be with Prabhupada in his garden in Los Angeles, where he just happened to be talking about surfing. And he said the surfers will become fish in their next life, which was obvious for me to understand, being so attached to the ocean. I just wanted to be near it, in it, swim in it, surf in it. And we would literally, this is what, if the waves were good, sometimes when the waves weren't good, we would come in simply because they were not good. But if the waves were good, we wouldn't come in until we were so exhausted that we were too tired to paddle out. We just used all our energy. We couldn't go out and catch another wave. That's why we would come in. It was an addiction. We couldn't give it up. So then when Prabhupada said, surfers will become fish, I thought, yeah, this makes total sense. Like, why not just be a fish, be a dolphin or something, a seal, and just surf all the time. So that's the point. And we think, no, don't think no, because you ask any surfer, that's what they're absorbed in, or skin divers. I mean, it's easy to understand how a skin diver would become a fish because they're pretty much dressed like one. And they just don't have to carry the tank, they can get the body with the built-in tank. So it starts to become obvious the more you think about it. So, Prabhupada is saying, be careful what you're attached to, because that's where you're going to go. And human life is meant for going back to Krishna. And so we're trying to cultivate attachment to Krishna. And the way we cultivate attachment to Krishna, one way is we have to detach enough from other things so they don't become problematic for our attachment to Krishna. Then if I'm too attached to something in this world, then somehow or other I have to use it, engage it. So I'm attached to women, then what do? I get married. I'm attached to men. What do? I get married. And I regulate it and I control it. And you say, well, what if I'm attached to surfing? What do? I don't know. Transcend it. Go body surfing. Throw away your board. Open a surf ashram. Something. But the point is to detach from it. There is a surf ashram in India. Did you know that? Interesting. What is the destination of the person who is attached to Facebook? Oh, there's a planet for them. And you go to that planet, and the planet is full of people, but they have no interaction because they're always on Facebook. So you go to a planet, and it's like impersonalism. You can't have any interaction with everybody, and you go crazy because everyone's just looking at their phones. That's the destination. The destination of a person is attached to Facebook. I think the destination is to destroy all their relationships and live in a virtual reality and destroy themselves in many ways. Facebook Loka, yeah. Krishna Karshan, he says, the destination of a husband attached to Facebook is to be killed by his wife. Yeah. No, the destination of your phone is the garbage pile, I think. Hare Krishna. So, it's time to end. We didn't read as much as we wanted to, but I think we had good discussions. So, thank you for attending, and we will see you tomorrow. Same time, same station. And I think we're making progress in clarifying exactly. This is such an interesting topic. It's clarifying the whole, it's giving us a clear picture of when you look at all the Shastras as a whole, you see these 2 points very clear. Don't become attached to things of this world, because that's what you'll be thinking of at death, because you think what you're attached to. Become attached to Krishna through the practice of bhakti. Become accustomed to the practice of bhakti, so that becomes where your mind and heart and soul goes when you're leaving your body. I think that message is clear. And then when you're reading Prabhupada's books within that context, you can see that those messages are everywhere. So that's very helpful. So be careful about what you're attached to. Otherwise, Paran, the destination of those attached to Facebook, I don't know, they could become an iPhone in their next life. Or maybe they'll take birth as Steve Jobs and develop more gizmos and gadgets. And who knows, maybe you'll become a scientist and be obsessed about creating something, some technological gadget. And I think one of the big liabilities of Facebook is that you hear criticism of devotees. And so we have to be careful, amongst other liabilities. It's another liability is time wasting, time that could be spent more usefully. And also relationships can suffer because the phone becomes more important than the person. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for coming to class today. And by the grace of the coronavirus, we all have more time to hear and chant about Krishna. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.